we inform.
Religious freedom is about people of faith being able to live out their faith, live out their convictions, no matter where they are.
We equip.
Sacred honor is the courage to speak truth, to live out your free speech.
We also rejoice in our sufferings because we know that suffering produces perseverance, perseverance, character, and character, hope.
This is At the Core on American Family Radio.
Welcome to The Core here on American Family Radio. I'm Walker Wildmon. Glad to be with you today on the program here on American Family Radio. Once again, I'm Walker Wildmon. Good to be with you. AFR.net. AFR.net is our website. You can check out the work at AFR.net. Check out the podcast and all things American Family Radio. We would love for you to do that. And we've got our share-a-thon coming up here in just several weeks in October, and we'll look forward to hearing from you and hearing your phone calls and your donations to come in during our fall share-a-thon. That's coming up here in just a couple weeks. All right, well, let's turn our attention to the Scripture, and then we'll cover the news of the week. A lot of breaking news this week. Proverbs chapter 25 is where we are this week. Proverbs chapter 25, looking at verse 21 and 22. If your enemy is hungry, give him food to eat. And if he is thirsty, give him water to drink. For you will heap burning coals on his head, and the Lord will reward you. And so here we have, as we have throughout Scripture, a teaching of humility, and a teaching of turning the other cheek, and really a teaching that goes against the way of the world. The way of the world teaches vengeance, it teaches revenge, it teaches an eye for an eye, but many times throughout Scripture, there is godliness being taught that goes against the world's way of operating, which is a very fleshly, sinful way of operating and a very impure way of operating. And here the Scripture says in Proverbs, look, hey, if your enemy's hungry, give him something to eat. And if he is thirsty, give him water to drink. And then it says the end result of that is that the Lord will reward you. All right, that's Proverbs chapter 25, verse 21 and 22. Well, we're going to Greece and Israel in the spring, March of 2026. We're going to Greece. That's coming up here not too far out. And we would love for you to go with us. So if you want to check out the dates and the information, the itinerary, the pricing, everything is available over at wildmongroup.com. That's wildmongroup.com. You can go and check out all the information you need for the tour of Israel and of Greece. They are two separate tours, but they're back-to-back. So if you want to do both, we would love to have you. If you just want to do one or the other, that's great too. Wildmongroup.com is all the information you need to check out those tours. Well, this week we had the tragic, shocking assassination of Charlie Kirk, the founder and president of Turning Point USA, very well-known young leader in the conservative movement. And it was a shock. Nobody saw this coming. We knew the left was prone to violence, but nobody thought, at least I didn't, that an assassination of a 31-year-old conservative leader in broad daylight on a college campus was in the cards. I mean, this shocked everybody. And during the live program here on AFR this week, Fred Jackson came in the program within 5 minutes of the program ending and broke news that conservative leader Charlie Kirk had been shot, but we didn't know where it would go from there. At that point, we didn't know that he would later be pronounced dead. And so that's been breaking since Wednesday afternoon, and a lot of information is still coming out. Once again, this is a very developing situation. This program today, on this Friday edition of The Core, we typically pre-record it on Thursday afternoon. And so some of the details I cover today could change by tomorrow when this airs on Friday. But nonetheless, we're going to do what we can to break this down and take kind of a high-level approach for now until we learn more. As I've mentioned numerous times, and I mentioned this, I tried to find the clip of it. I couldn't. I didn't have enough time to find the clip. But I mentioned at some point over the last year, especially, I believe the context was the 2024 election and the violence of the left. But what I have stated previously, in essence, and I'm going to draw all this together, if you will, is that the modern day left, all right, which is a element of the Democrat Party. Within the modern day left, you have Marxist, you have communist, you have socialist, you have these LGBTQ radicals, these sexual deviant radicals that don't believe in gender, they don't believe in sex, they think we're all non-binary, and they've got 17 pronouns. I mean, this is an element of the party. Within this group, you can also find the anti-Semitic, anti-Jew, free Palestine type wing of the party. You've also got a lot of Muslims that fall into the Democrat Party. Ironically, the Democrats typically try to appeal to the Muslim. Look in Minnesota at how the Muslims are becoming a major voting bloc. And Democrats are really shying away, many of them, from supporting Israel because of this voting bloc of the Democrat Party being majority Muslim, are the Muslims becoming a prominent voting bloc of the Democrat Party. Let me say that. And so you get these different elements of the Democrat Party. So it's not quite as easy just to say, here is what the Democrat Party is, just like probably the same could be said about the Republican Party. But pretty much we've got this common thread over the last decade or so, a little bit longer than that. There's this common thread of radicalization amongst the Democrat Party that we've seen take place. And the radicalization typically has taken place at the grassroots level, meaning these are mostly Democrat voters that have become radicalized through the narratives and the rhetoric of left-wing leaders. And I believe what really launched this, what really bolstered this dangerous rhetoric, was when groups like the Southern Poverty Law Center decided that they would brand everyone that they disagree with ideologically as haters and as a de facto hate group. And then the Southern Poverty Law Center, not only was it enough for them to just call groups like American Family Association, individuals like President Donald Trump and others, members of a hate group or haters or whatever kind of rhetoric they used. It wasn't just enough to do that. They needed to create a map. They needed to create a map where they pinpoint where all of these, quote, hate groups are. And once again, the Southern Poverty Law Center and others, including the media, have bundled in mainstream Christian groups and figures and conservative figures with the KKK and with Nazi groups and with other very abhorrent groups. And so there's this bundling in of really conservatism and anything Judeo-Christian and preserving of America's constitutional principles and any fondness of America's founders and anyone who calls himself a patriot is now getting bundled into these labels of you're a Nazi, you're a hater, you're a bigot, you're against democracy, and I could go on and on and on. But you guys get the point. You've seen this take place. And so this is the context of the Charlie Kirk assassination. This is the context of the attempted assassination of President Trump. This is the context of the Family Research Council shooter in 2013. This is the context of Representative Steve Scalise out of Louisiana and others in 2017 being gunned down playing baseball in Virginia. This is the context of the 21-year-old Florida man who was sentenced to 6 months in prison for threatening to kill AFA leadership. Yours truly. This is the context of over 100 pro-life pregnancy clinics in 2022 and churches, by the way, 100 combined, being vandalized and firebombed. This is the context of, in 2023, a young person identified as transgender killed 6 people at the Covenant School in Nashville, Tennessee. This is the context, as I mentioned, of the 2 assassination attempts in 2024 of President Donald J. Trump. Lastly, this is the context of the New Mexico GOP headquarters being targeted by an arsonist in 2025 this year. This is the context of the 23-year-old transgender that killed 2 children in recent weeks in Minneapolis, Minnesota at the Catholic school. Lastly, to not exhaust this, this is the context of the Charlie Kirk assassination. And I could go on, and maybe I will. I just built that list in 10 minutes. The list is actually much larger. Because when you start documenting violence against conservatives broadly, not just well-known conservatives or well-known organizations, but when you document violence on everyday Americans, political violence against everyday Americans because they're wearing their MAGA hat, or they have an In God We Trust shirt on, or they have an American flag outside of their home, all of these instances are connected to this dangerous rhetoric where people that are right-leaning, conservative, Christian, etc., are demonized. And so, as I've said before, I don't believe that the modern day left and the Democrat Party can rein it in. All right? I don't think they have it within them to rein it in because this is now an element of their party. I don't know how many people make up this radical, militant, dangerous element of the Democrat Party. I'm not sure, and I'm not going to try to act like it's a lot of people, okay? It could be 1%. It could be less than that. But the fact of the matter is, the road to Marxism, the road to communism, the road to this godless, pagan, in many cases satanic ideology of constantly satisfying the desires of the flesh, and anyone who speaks out against it is immediately demonized. This move towards the squashing of speech, the targeting of political opponents, the cheerleading of violence that well-known members of the Democrat Party are documented to have done. I've played the clips on the program. Maxine Waters, Chuck Schumer on the steps of the Supreme Court. I could go on and on. Eric Holder. Don't just kick them down, stomp them down, stand on their neck. Kick them while they're down, they've said. Now we have documented cases of people celebrating the Charlie Kirk assassination. Thousands of documented cases of people publicly celebrating the Charlie Kirk assassination. More on this when we get back.
At the Core podcasts are available at afr.net. Now, back to At the Core on American Family Radio.
Welcome back to the program. Well, before we jump right back into this assassination, this political assassination of Charlie Kirk, I want to remind you that today is the last day to call in and share your listener testimony. I failed to give out the number in the last segment, but I've got it now, 877-876-8893. Today's the last day. We would love for you to call in if you've been positively impacted by American Family Radio, if God has used AFR in your life. Call 877-876-8893, 877-876-8893. We'd love to hear from you. Leave the voicemail about 1 or 2 minutes, 2 minutes being the most. Try to keep it as brief as possible. And Lord willing, we'll play some of those voicemails on the air during our share-a-thon here in a couple weeks. All right, back to the Charlie Kirk assassination. This is, folks, I want to be clear. When you look throughout Scripture, you're not going to find biblical teachings promoting violence. You're not going to find the Bible telling Christians to take vengeance into our own hands, or to become vigilantes, or to force our political and religious will on the public through fear and intimidation. You're just not going to find it. Now, if you go read the Quran, you might find it. If you go read Marxist literature, you might find it. Matter of fact, you will. But this is not what we do. This is not what Christianity is about. And this is why our founding fathers had the wisdom to set this nation up with a government structured how it is so that we don't have to resort to violence anymore. We've got 3 branches, co-equal branches of government to rein in the sinful desires of man so that not one branch or one person would become a king. And all of this is because our founders used the Bible to set this nation up. And so here we are in 2025, and the result today is still not violence. And so looking at how we got here, when a society built on human dignity, respect for life, individual rights, and all other biblical teachings, when a society built on that abandons it, and we're at the point, folks, where it's nearly fully abandoned. Okay, when you look at the polls, when you look at the surveys, a proper understanding of a biblical worldview has been overwhelmingly abandoned. Now there might be, inklings of a biblical understanding out there amongst the populace, but when you look at George Barna's studies, the percentage of people that actually understand a biblical view of life is in the single digits. And so we can't be surprised we are where we are. But back to this continual drifting towards violence and the rhetoric not cooling down, by the way. There was a professor, this is just all breaking once again within the last 24 to 48 hours. There was a professor here in our own backyard at the University of Mississippi terminated because she was celebrating the assassination of Charlie Kirk. And we have now documented cases of other educational professionals, to put it broadly, throughout the country. These are college professors and high school teachers that were online celebrating the assassination of Charlie Kirk. And these are all being documented. People are being fired as we speak, including this University of Mississippi professor. And this is coming. This is becoming the norm. And when I say that we're not to resort to violence, I can tell you what we are to resort to. And that is vigilance. And it's really sad that we are where we are. It's very sad that we are where we are. But we can't. The America that it once was isn't the America that it is today. And I think many people are coming to grips with that, have come to grips with that. And we're going to have to be more vigilant than we've ever been as Americans, and specifically as Christians and those who want to conserve America's founding precepts. We're going to have to become ever vigilant. And it's really unfortunate. I really don't want to accept it, to be honest with you. I don't want to accept this sad reality that a 31-year-old father of two and husband who loves debating people peacefully and respectfully on college campuses, that he can't go to a college campus in America and engage in a peaceful, respectful dialogue with fellow young people about their worldview. How do you view the world? Let's debate it. That was Charlie Kirk. He was a living example of the First Amendment. And I just don't want to accept, even though we may be forced to, this notion that we can't do that anymore. It's too dangerous. We need to move it inside. We've got to have metal detectors. We got to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on security. Are you kidding me? And so this is what we know thus far, and how this is all connected when I'm talking about the radicalization of an element of the Democrat Party. This is just out within the last 24 hours that the ammunition recovered from the campus was reportedly, this is according to the Wall Street Journal, Steven Crowder actually broke this first, the ammunition found with the firearm, actually chambered in the firearm that was alleged to have killed and assassinated Charlie Kirk, or used to assassinate Charlie Kirk, to be proper, was engraved with transgender and anti-fascist ideology. And we still have, and we will have, for a long time, news outlets that say we don't know the motive of the shooter. I don't understand. What are we doing here? We still have articles being published saying we don't know the motive of the transgender shooter in Minnesota. For months, we had articles saying we don't know the motive of the transgender shooter in Nashville. Within 24 hours of President Trump's assassination attempt, there were articles saying we don't know the motive of the person who attempted an assassination on President Trump. I don't understand what you need to say what the motive is. And at the end of the day, does it really matter? I mean, this is oftentimes treated overcomplicated. It's treated as an overcomplicated manner that's not complicated at all. All right? Now, if you want to say I don't know the motive of the Charlotte stabbing suspect, well, maybe, even though he's caught on audio saying I got the white woman, I got the white girl. That's what he said. So was it racist related? Race related? I don't know. Maybe. We'll have to see. Okay. But when you have a political assassination in broad daylight and then you publish an article saying we don't know the motive, are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? And so let's don't have our head in the sand and act like we don't know what's going on here. What's going on here, and then I'll end on this, and then we'll jump into some of the key facts that we know to date. What's going on here, if you need it summarized, is you've got an element of the Democrat Party, mostly Marxist, some LGBTQ, that have bought into the lie that conservatives and Republicans are fascist and they're Nazis and they're a threat to democracy and they're haters and bigots and they don't deserve to live. That's the dangerous rhetoric that is percolating our culture at the lower levels of the Democrat Party apparatus, and it's being fostered by the leaders, not properly denounced in due time. That's the problem that we have. So we are in a continual civil war. We're in a de facto civil war. Yes, I understand it's not at the scale that it was during the previous civil war in America. But this civil war is primarily taking place online. These young people are being radicalized online. And then the violence is taking place in America's cities and streets. But we're currently, I believe, in a form of a civil war, where an ideological element of a major political party views violence and death as a means to an end. I believe that's where we are. And I'm not trying to say apples to apples to America's Civil War. Not trying to say that. I'm just saying when you look at the definition of civil war and the taking up of arms and violence and death, this fits the definition. And the frequency is growing every day to where we go from one a year to one a month to now it's every 3 weeks. But what we know about this shooter, it appears to be, according to the FBI, a young male. Once again, it appears this situation has been fluid. It's changed. The FBI has backtracked. They've said we've arrested a suspect. We haven't arrested a suspect. And so what we know as of Thursday afternoon of this week is that the person of interest or the suspect that is still at large is a male. Appears to be a white male. I don't know that for sure. The FBI in Salt Lake City is describing this male as a college-age male who reportedly took the shot from the rooftop on the campus roughly 200 yards away from Charlie Kirk with a high-powered rifle. Fled the scene on foot, dumped the gun, including the cartridges that are engraved with transgender and anti-fascist ideological messages, and is still on the loose. Now, I don't believe this was a, quote, a shot that required expert marksmanship. 200 yards with a rifle with a scope that's properly sighted in. That's not an expert shot. That's not a military level shot. But it's also not a shot that someone takes that has never been around firearms. And the fact that this individual was able to flee virtually undetected for 24 hours, to me, it shows that there was a pretty advanced level of planning and preparation here. Meaning, I don't think this shooter woke up on the morning that Charlie Kirk was coming into town and said, I'm going to take out Charlie Kirk. No, I think this person visited the campus. If they weren't a student there, they visited the campus. They scoped out where Charlie Kirk was going to be placed. They scoped out the rooftop, how to gain access to the rooftop, looked at egresses, looked at stairwells, looked at routes for fleeing on foot. Reportedly, the shooter fled into a nearby neighborhood. Did the shooter live in that neighborhood? Was there a vehicle parked in that neighborhood that was used as a getaway vehicle? All of this is going to come out, and I think they're going to find the shooter pretty quickly. Once again, this is aired on Thursday afternoon, airing on Friday around lunchtime, and so by the time this airs, it's very possible they have the shooter, but as of now, as of Thursday afternoon, they don't. But this is America 2025, where it's not safe for a conservative to go to a college campus and have a respectful, peaceful dialogue with peers about worldview, about faith, about religion, about conservatism, about liberalism, about Marxism. So this is where we are in 2025. It's very sad that we are where we are. Charlie Kirk has fallen victim to a political assassination. Nobody is arguing that. We have a violent, radicalized arm of the Democrat Party, militant in many forms, operating in America, circulating hit list online with other conservative leaders' names. It's very dangerous. And the one thing that we can all agree on is that we need God to radically transform hearts and minds in this nation. That is the only permanent fix. We'll be back.
At the Core podcasts are available at afr.net. Now, back to At the Core on American Family Radio.
Welcome back to the Core here on American Family Radio. Walker Wildmon with you. One thing I've got to say before we jump to Chris and continue talking about this political assassination. Folks, this is more than political violence. This is not just political violence. Political violence is someone punching somebody in the streets because they are the opposite party or the opposite ideology. Political violence is vandalizing, the DNC headquarters or whatever the example might be. This is a political assassination, and there's a difference. Political violence is a broad term used. This is a political assassination, all right? And I want to make that clear. The reason I say that is because I'm seeing these statements where they say, this is a senseless act of violence. Well, this is a senseless political assassination, all right? And so I think words matter, and I think properly using the most extreme terminology in this instance is the most accurate. This was more than political violence. It was a political assassination. What I put out on this yesterday or earlier in the week on Wednesday afternoon as this was breaking is that this goes beyond the general issue of political violence, a term that's often used too broadly. What we're witnessing now are repeated assassination attempts targeting conservative political figures. When a timeline is compiled, of which I'm compiling it, showing incidents of politically motivated violence and assassination attempts over the past decade, a troubling pattern will undoubtedly emerge. It will become increasingly clear that a radicalized segment of the Democrat Party views violence, even murder, as a legitimate means to achieve political ends. That's what I put out on Wednesday afternoon, and it stands true today. Chris Woodward is with us. Chris, welcome to the program.
Thank you very much.
Chris, let's talk about the implications of the Charlie Kirk assassination. The first implication and the most tragic is the fact that Charlie's wife, now widow, and son and daughter now don't have dad.
Yeah.
That's the primary implication and the most tragic one out of this whole situation. But, Chris, he was a key political and ideological figure that was transforming the younger generation.
Right.
In a good way.
Oh, for sure.
He was having respectful debates and dialogue with young people that were searching for how to view the world, how to view life, how to view Christianity, how to view the Constitution. And he was actually convincing them that Christianity is true and America ought to be preserved.
Right.
And so the assassination implications here is that a major leader that was bringing about radical transformation amongst young people was assassinated, and now his impact will be affected.
Yeah. One of the things that he really did well was explain to young people why economic policies matter. He has made the news a lot for things about guns, for things about trans, for things about marriage and things like that. All the things that he applaud him for and the statements that we do support him in making. But Charlie had a really good impact on reaching young people and helping them understand why it's important to have good fiscal policies, not only in Washington, D.C., but also in the State House. And I strung together a clip of various things that Charlie has said in recent months here, trying to explain to them why it is that what D.C. is deciding is doing to them and their families down the road.
How do you propose we stop inflation?
You cut federal spending dramatically, and you stop the Federal Reserve from buying bonds of failed banks like Silicon Valley Bank and artificially boosting the money supply, which makes all of you poorer. The reason why you guys are going to struggle to buy a home for the next 15 years is because D.C. is addicted to deficit spending.
The way to incentivize not impregnating women and abandoning them is increasing access to health care, into housing.
So we have spent $30 trillion on the social welfare system since 1965.
What makes you think Dodge is efficient?
What makes Doge efficient? Yeah. So Doge saved $1.5 million going to a voter confidence summit in Liberia. Doge saved $40 million going to a gender equality and woman empowerment hub. Doge saved $19 million going to biodiversity conversation in Nepal. Doge saved U.S. taxpayers $144 million identifying 97 government real estate leases that were empty buildings. And this is just touching the surface.
Now, when I saw and I heard those comments, I thought, these are things that you and I talk about,
Right.
and we try to stress on young people. And to his credit, he spent his time away from his family and friends trying to reach young people to bring them around on this issue, and he succeeded.
Yeah.
There are a lot of young people today that are socially liberal on policies. That's one thing that AFA exists to try to help them with, help them understand why that's wrong. But to Charlie Kirk's credit, he is the reason why there are a lot of young people out there that not only embrace and endorse conservative fiscal policies, but also the First Amendment, which allows them to do those things.
Yeah. Yeah, this is chilling, Chris, and I understand that we ought not be intimidated, and I don't think we should be intimidated. I don't think as believers we ought to have a spirit of fear. I don't think we should, go hide and for the sake of self-preservation, which is temporal, because we all are going to meet our eternal fate. But the practical implications, Chris, is that this sends a chill down the spine of everybody who would like to speak out about their beliefs, but they're fearful that they might be knocked off. And I'll tell you what, the left, they don't have that fear. Because largely speaking, you might find some rare, instances of a right-leaning person being violent, but for the most part, conservatives don't target liberals with violence.
No.
We go to the ballot box, we do campaign ads, we do social media campaigns, we do litigation in court. We utilize all legal, nonviolent means to enact change that we believe is right and just. And the same cannot be said about them. And so, Chris, I think, at least for the time being, this has chilled free speech. And I know nobody wants me to say that. Nobody wants to admit that because that's conceding to the enemy, and I understand that. I'm just telling you, I'm not saying it's right. I'm just telling you, when people are thinking about, do I go, and we know we have friends that do this, friends of the ministry. I'm not going to mention names, but when these leaders are thinking, do I go to UC Berkeley and sit in front of 1,000 students and debate communism versus socialism versus capitalism? Should I do it or not? What's being thought of in their mind is, am I going to be assassinated?
Right. Yeah, I can think of half a dozen people right now, young people with families, several of them women who are about to have a baby or have just had babies and are going to be taking time with their baby, understandably.
Yeah.
So, this has to be weighing at the back of their mind, because the individuals I'm thinking of are all very outspoken. They get a lot of coverage, and there are many people out there that don't like them.
Yeah.
We have to, as conservatives, not allow fear to determine our what we do with our daily lives.
Correct.
But at the same time, right now, I completely understand as a husband and a father that it might not be the safest thing to do to go speak somewhere this weekend or next week.
Yeah. Chris, I don't have time to play clips, but let's just talk about this general theme or trend of Democrats who aren't maybe promoting violence, but when you talk about solutions to violence, including locking up these career criminals like the stabbing suspect in Charlotte, I've got a whole 5-minute clip, maybe we'll get to it next week, maybe not, of CNN saying we can't lock them up. We can't institutionalize them because, well, that's not right. Well, okay, so the only option is no option, and that is women, like the victim of the Charlotte stabbing, just have to be fearful.
Yeah.
Just have to look over their shoulder. And if they get, murdered on the train in Charlotte, it just tough luck.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the Democrats' part. That this is the problem, is they have no solution except let the criminals out.
Yeah.
Let them run free.
Yeah. In 10 years' time, we've gone from things like love trumps hate to summer of rage.
Yes,
And we're
you're
going
right.
to fight them in the streets, and we're going to punch them in the mouth, and we're going to do all these things that, despite how you might say them and what you might have meant when you said
Right.
them, people, listen, I've worked in broadcasting for almost 25 years. No matter how you say it or what you said, somebody's going to hear it and see it how they thought
Yes.
it was.
Yeah, it's militant oriented.
Yes.
It's militant oriented. And when you look at these, I'm telling you folks, this is out there, and the media ought to be picking up on it. Because if this were an element of the Republican Party, folks, the media would be covering it day in and day out, and the Southern Poverty Law Center would have them on their map and the whole 9 yards. FBI would have a task force assigned to it. There is an element, and there are online chat groups, whether it's on Reddit, whether it's on Blue Sky, I think it is, which is like the Democrat version of X. There are these online chat groups where they're literally sending pictures of each other's guns, talking about which conservative they're going to knock off next.
Right.
This is like normal amongst these groups. And when you had the Catholic school shooter back a couple weeks ago, the transgender Catholic school shooter, and then you look at their MO, you look at their manifesto, this was a radicalized member of the LGBTQ activist wing of the Democrat Party.
Yeah.
And so this is a major problem, Chris. And I think one of the primary reasons that Democrat Party leaders and policy thinkers, if you will, don't have a true fix, Chris, is because they don't believe that man is sinful.
Right.
They don't believe in sin. They don't believe in evil. So it's all about their circumstances and their policies, and we just got to get them more help. That's why they don't want to lock people up, because they think, well, it's a mental illness. Well, okay, no, they're just evil. People can just be evil. They don't have to be psychotic.
Yeah. And I think also, too, we need to work really hard at bringing Democrats back to the importance of embracing life. I've said this before on the show, And I'm saying it out of love for any audience member out there that might be, wait a minute, you guys are what? No, I do what I do every day because I care about other people. Same thing with Walker, same thing with AFA, same thing with Abe or Bobby or anybody else.
We want people to understand, properly understand what's going on in this country.
So I'm saying we need liberals to come back to the pro-life realm, because if you don't care about the simplest of life or the most innocent in life, you don't care about a 30-some-odd-year-old on a train. You don't care about somebody speaking on a college campus. You don't care about an elderly person walking down the street in a bad neighborhood. If you cared more about babies, you would care more about all people. Just like there are pro-life people that say every year at March for Life, which AFN covers, we are pro-life from womb to tomb.
Yes.
And we need more Democrats to join Republicans in that effort.
Yeah, and you're right. I mean, it all is a trickle effect. It's a trickle-down effect. And so if you don't view the baby as human and you don't value their life, well, then what makes you value the life of your political opponent?
Yeah,
I mean, it's a trickle-down effect. When you deny God, you deny the sanctity of life, and you view things through a humanist lens, this is what it gets you.
Right.
And so that's where we are. To your point about drawing people out of this pit, I think things like this are going to make longtime people who consider themselves liberal really rethink the whole worldview. Really rethink how they view the world, life, faith, because this is really bad. And there's an end. It's a dead end road, I guess is what I'm trying to get at, is this Marxism, secular humanism, transgenderism, all these isms, all these ideologies that are really all allies and interrelated. They're all built on secular humanism. There is no God. It's a dead end road. I mean, literally, they get to a place where they've quote satisfied all the desires of the flesh, and they're out of options.
Yeah,
and it's very nihilistic and evil and dark. And I think some people are seeing that and realizing that there's got to be a better way.
Yeah, Democrats need more Harry Trumans and less Zoran Mamdanis.
Yeah,
that's what they need.
Duly noted. Chris, thanks so much.
Thank you.
All right, folks, there you have it. We've got to have a move of God on the hearts of man, and we've got to have hearts of stones turned into hearts of flesh. That's the only permanent fix. And in the meantime, we've got to have righteous leaders in government, in church, in culture, in family. We'll see you next time.
The views and opinions expressed in this broadcast may not necessarily